Hey everyone, this is Leo from TechLion, and today I got a very special device here that I've been looking forward to for almost a year now. We managed to get our hands on a Steam Deck. The model that we're using here is going to be the 512 gigabyte version that was 20% off due to Steam's recent 20-year anniversary. Happy birthday, Steam. You're almost old enough to drink in the US. So what we're going to do in this video is go through an unboxing of the Steam Deck, go over some initial thoughts on the products, and get a little bit of benchmarking done. But before we jump into that, this video is brought to you by us over at TechLionPCs.com, where you can check out our store for custom mid-range builds, along with our consolation page, where you can fill in whether you'd like an upgrade, a new build, a pre-built PC, along with a budget, and we'll work with you on the PC of your choice. Check us out again over at TechLionPCs.com. Now, before we talk stats and play around with the device, let's get it out of the box first. It comes in a pretty plain brown box that just gets a label slapped onto it and shipped as is. Since this isn't something that you can see or pick up into a store like Micro Center, Best Buy, or a Target or anything like that, I can see why they didn't bother going all out with the box design. Now, opening it up, we're treated to a cardboard sheet with a basic setup instruction and a QR code that we can scan for online instructions. The interior is giving us a cute list of places that you're able to play the Steam Deck at, in quite a variety of languages, even a small reference to Half-Life's chest chamber. The first thing that we're going to pop out is the included USB-C charger that supplies it with up to 20 volts of power. As for the Steam Deck itself, this model comes in pre-packaged already inside of its carrying case. The case itself took a little bit to actually open up with the cardboard that constantly kept tearing away while I was just trying to get to it, but now we can take a good look at the case. It feels very smooth to the touch. Over in the back, it actually has a strap that is housing a pouch area. Likely we're just going to use this pouch for the charger and maybe a set of earbuds that we could throw in there as well. Now to get inside of the deck. A simple tear of the plastic piece here that's keeping it held together, and we're able to get it unzipped and opened up. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Steam Deck itself. Hands-on, it feels super comfortable in my hands. The trackpads and the stick on it feel pretty smooth to the touch, the buttons on it and even the D-pad feel clicky like they're supposed to, and there's a whole host of standard buttons in the front like you'd expect, plus 2 additional buttons at the bottom of it that we'll get into a little bit later. Over around the back, we can see that there's additional trigger buttons around the bottom that would be used with your ring and pinky fingers. Over up top, we can also see that there's a volume control, a 3.5mm jack for your headphones, and an exhaust for heat, as well as an additional USB-C port for charging and connectivity, and of course the power button. And there's an included nylon sheet for cleaning the screen as well. Now, while I get the device charged up, let's talk about its stats. The Steam Deck is equipped with an impressive custom AMD APU chip. Kind of like how the Ryzen 5 5600G has one built in for desktop PCs, but a bit more powerful than that. It's a Zen 2 architecture, quad-core, 8-thread that boosts up to 3.5 GHz. The built-in GPU runs at 8 RDNA cores at 2 CUs, which also boosts up to 1.6 GHz and can utilize anywhere between 4 to 15 watts of power. This can be adjusted as some settings are available in the Steam Deck settings, so that way it can use less juice when it's off the charger and at full speed when it's plugged in. Speaking of juice, the battery is listed at 40 watt-hours, so if you're off the wall, it's estimated to drain somewhere between 2 to 8 hours depending on the level of gaming that you're going to be doing, so do plan and adjust accordingly if you're on a trip. As for memory, all 3 models of the Steam Deck utilize the same 16 gigs of LPDDR5 memory, non-upgradable, which is fine for the most part, but just be aware that this is shared with both the CPU and the GPU in this chip. There's also 3 different storage models available, a 64, 256, and a 512 model. The one that we have here in particular is going to be the 512 model, as it does come with one difference that the other 2 models don't have, an anti-glare screen built in. Speaking of the screen, this is probably the least impressive part of the Steam Deck, as it's a 7-inch IPS display that runs at 1280 by 800 resolution, but it is only at 60 Hz, so you won't be able to get that full smooth experience from some games that are able to go above 60 FPS on this. Still though, it's pretty serviceable that's out there, especially at the price point that you're going to be paying at, but there's other handhelds that are out there and even cell phones with far better displays than the Steam Deck itself has. Now for a size comparison, here's a Switch model that's right next to it. We can see that because of both the screen size and the built-on controls, it is a much heftier device, but we can also see, especially because of the overhead light that I have here, the anti-glare screen on this version of the Steam Deck does help a ton with stopping all that extra light that you could be getting from other sources. Now let's get this powered up and set up. First time booting up the Steam Deck, it asks us a couple of simple setup questions like the language, the time zone that I'm in, and getting it connected to the local Wi-Fi. And almost immediately after getting it connected to my Wi-Fi, it started running through an installer and update. Now this is no different than consoles like my Switch or my PS5 when I first unboxed those as well, so this is pretty much a standard business with newer network connected devices. Now once this part finishes and we're logged in with our Steam account, we're treated to this tutorial screen explaining how the Steam Deck works with a few of its features including the extra buttons that are on the face of the controller. Once this simple tutorial is done and over with, it jumps me immediately to my Steam library, all 400 and something games that I've got in there. Now I'm assuming that if you've got a fresh brand new Steam account that's logging into this, it's going to bring you to the Steam Deck version of the store that's mostly focused on games that they know run well on the Steam Deck, and boy are there a ton of them. But now that we're actually logged into this, what we're going to do from here is jump straight into the meat of it all. How does it play modern games? Now I know what the Steam Deck can do is it can handle low-res games extremely well. We're talking like low resolution, 2D, low poly kind of games just fine. But what I want to do here is see how it can run modern titles. What we want to aim for is a couple of competitive games at 60 FPS and a couple of single-player games at 30 FPS. Now fortunately, the Steam Deck itself comes with its own built-in frame counter tool that we'll keep enabled at the top of the screen so we don't have to worry about trying to fiddle around with any Linux version of Fraps or the AMD Adrenalin overlay or other benchmarking tools. But with that in mind, we're going to be starting off with a Battle Royale shooter, Apex Legends. Now it left it at the default settings that the game has, which appears to be a mixture of medium to high settings, and then jumped right into a match, and was completely blown away by how buttery smooth this ran. It ran at a locked 60 FPS the entire time, with it only ever dropping below this while we were jumping out of a plane looking at the entire area. The deck can really pump out some really good frame rate at the right settings in multiplayer titles. I was immediately taken back by the quality as well of the built-in speakers that are on the device, as it sounded very loud, nice, crisp, and clear, and I was easily able to tell the direction of where my enemies were just from the front speakers that are built onto this device. Now obviously having something like headphones would provide a much better experience and more immersive experience when you're playing a competitive shooter like Apex Legends, but just, playing with the speakers itself, I was having a pretty good time. Sticking to competitive titles, let's have ourselves a look at modern fighting games with Street Fighter 6. Now when it comes to fighting games, 60 FPS must be maintained at all times for a smooth experience, especially if you're playing online competitively. Anything less and the game itself becomes an absolute mess, whether you're playing something like Tekken, Guilty Gear, or even Mortal Kombat. Street Fighter 6 doesn't actually have an 800p option, but it does default itself to 720p lowest, which for some reason locked the frame rate to 30. But when I change the video settings to normal, it does increase the FPS cap to 60. However, the game hovered at the low to mid 50s at normal settings. So instead what I had to do was switch the game to low and then uncap the frame rate from 30 to 60, and it actually did play at that locked 60 FPS that we needed for a smooth fighting game experience on the go. This kind of does show that even with the Steam Deck, the default settings may not be the best, and you may have to jump into those options to tweak them for the proper settings. Tiny Tina's Wonderland is another one I've been enjoying a lot as of late. The game defaulted itself to around 800p of course at medium settings. Utilizing the in-game benchmark tool that's available, it averaged out over 51 FPS. And then when I decided to run around in-game, I was getting anywhere between mid-40s to mid-50s depending on the mid-combat, the town, or the kind of area that I was in. If I wanted to, I could have set it down from medium to low if I wanted to kind of stay around the 60 FPS mark as well. Elden Ring was a bit of a strange one. I tried a range of the preset settings here between low, medium, and high, and it doesn't seem to really matter which one I choose. The game still hovers at just above 30 FPS regardless of the settings that I use at 800p, and I'm honestly not sure why that is, whether it's something that's poorly optimized or exactly optimized. But regardless, that's still great because it means that it's a PS4 or Xbox One performance in the palm of your hands, which is exactly what I'm expecting out of the single player experiences on the deck. Now, one final game that we're going to go over here is going to be Resident Evil 4's 2023 remake. This is a game that I've poured in a few dozen hours into recently with multiple playthroughs. Now, the game itself defaulted down to balanced, which is kind of akin to low, and I toggled off the FSR settings here as well. Now, I really tried going through the entire opening sequence of the game at prioritized graphics instead, which is basically the medium settings, but the problem was the game kept dipping down to the mid to low 20s. So I ended up having to switch the game back out over to balance, and I never saw it dip below 30 FPS from there. You could even turn on FSR if you wish, and see about turning on quality or balance mode if you're looking for that extra kick in frame rate. But again, 30 FPS is what I'm looking for in single player titles at a handheld market over here, and this is definitely hitting that mark at the proper settings. That's going to wrap it up for this one here that we have with the Steam Deck. Overall, I'm super impressed by not only its performance, but the capability and user-friendliness of the device, especially for the cost that it's offered at. I'll be taking this with me on my anniversary trip for the week, as well for a couple of holiday trips that we have planned coming up instead of my Nintendo Switch, so I can get a really good feel for it as a day-to-day mobile gaming device. I'm excited to make a couple of more Steam Deck videos in the future as well, so please stay tuned for those by liking and subscribing to the channel so you can get notified, since the next time I'll be adding some accessories to my Steam Deck to help improve not only the immersion, but the experience of it. Until next time, this is Leo signing out.